mailing list, Sarah? Did you use
MailChimp?
MailChimp?
Yeah.
Why does everyone default to, we use MailChimp as well? Why does everyone default to MailChimp?
I think it's because it's what I learned in the charity sector, and I've just stuck with what works. I knew it, I was familiar with it. So there's probably other platforms, but the moving it all over is a job in and of itself.
Yeah, well, everyone keeps saying there's better ones, but I think, yeah, they must have done a big campaign towards charities years ago, and now they're just like locked in. Everyone loves MailChimp.
I think they had really good free plans for the longest time for charities. Like I think it was like a good few thousand people, unlimited amounts of emails. You could use all the features, and then they've slowly reduced how much charities can actually use.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, let's kick us off. This is the Fundraising Everywhere podcast. My name is Simon Scriver. We are streaming live today to LinkedIn as well. So you might be watching this live on LinkedIn, or you may be listening back on the Fundraising Everywhere podcast. Either way, really happy to have you here. My name is Simon, and I am joined today by the wonderful, well, we're talking about welcome journeys today in particular. But I could talk to Sarah Goddard about anything. So hello, Sarah. Welcome to the Fundraising. You nerd out on fundraising, don't you? I think that's why I like talking to you, because you're a big fundraiser by heart, aren't you? What's your background?
Absolutely. I have been in the sector better part of 2 decades. I started out in face-to-face fundraising, so on a high street near you with a clipboard. I'm sure they've all got very high-tech iPads and things nowadays, but old school paper clipboard. Discovered I really like the telling stories, talking to people about charities, inspiring them. Would rather do it without standing out in the blistering heat or the freezing cold snow. Did an internship, fell into fundraising that way a little bit, and still here 20 years, nearly 20 years later, really. So
it's amazing, and you've got a great track record, because I love your background. You've worked with a lot of small organizations and medium organizations, like real mix of size. And it's very impressive. And these days you work with a lot of people, helping them in lots of areas, but you're very public fundraising, very community fundraising minded, aren't you? And I will remind people, Sarah is curating with us our community fundraising conference on Fundraising Everywhere, which is happening 19th of June. But you're a big community head, aren't you? Like that's where you spend a lot of your time, is helping people boost their community fundraising.
Absolutely, yeah. So I started off in events initially, as I think many fundraisers often do. Then that grew into doing community as well. Over the years, I got seconded into individual giving and learned all of that, and really understood how those areas work closely together. I think once upon a time they were very much neither the twain shall meet, whereas now charities are bringing those areas closer together, which I feel very passionately about, because they're all our supporters, and however they choose to give, our jobs are to inspire and give them the opportunity to get involved in lots of different ways. And one of the most powerful ways of doing that is absolutely engaging the community, whether it's a local community, if you're in a particular geographical area, or who are our community of supporters, who are the people that our cause speaks to their values and their motivations and the change they want to see in the world. Let's engage those communities. And yeah, you shouldn't pick favorites with fundraising, but I'll be honest, community fundraising will always be my true love, and I will be up on that soapbox banging the drum for how awesome community fundraising is as long as I'm fundraising, I reckon.
But you make the very valid point that it's not in isolation. No form of fundraising is. Like, it spills out into your corporate, into even your trust. It spills out into your IG. Like, it's all connected. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, was focusing on that, almost that the welcome journeys we're talking about, but that supporter experience, because we've got our supporter experience conference happening as well this month. And so maybe you could talk me through your idea of a welcome journey, or how you view welcome journeys for people. I mean, for me, it's like, these people who are just coming onto our list, and those early days of it, that's a very simplified thing. But what do you mean when you talk about welcome journey, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is that core bread and butter that often it's our email list. It's Alex Ferron often talks a lot about that's your only platform that you own. So don't worry so much about building social media, build your email list. And I completely agree. Like, put that that sentiment up on a pedestal, completely agree with that. So often it is about someone has found out a little bit about us, come across our website, maybe seen a community fundraiser out and about in the wild, if you like, and gone, oh yeah, I want to hear a bit more about that charity. I'll pop my name and details down. And if they then don't hear from you for 6 weeks, because that's when your next email goes out, or they're going to have forgotten about you by that point. The point of engagement, the point when a supporter takes action, is their most important time, because that is when they're excited, it's when they're motivated, it's when something has moved them. So you want to keep that feeling going and keep that thing going. So yeah, in its simplest term, the welcome journeys are, what is that series of emails or series of communications, because it doesn't all have to be by email, that a supporter first receives when they first take an action. Equally, as I say, it doesn't have to be online. If a supporter has sent in a check, or even if they've made the donation online, there's nothing saying you can't send them a lovely you should be sending them a lovely thank you letter or a lovely thank you regardless, but you can pop that in the post. You could pick up the phone. Like, there are lots of different ways that you can engage that supporter. And thinking about that creatively, because we all get far too many emails. We all lose sight of emails. So think about how we can best engage people. But then there's also about that welcome at different points as well, and different forms of welcome. So for your community supporters, for your event supporters, what does that welcome look like when someone signs up to do something? When someone picks up the phone to say they're doing their bake sale, or fills in the online form to register for your colour run? Is that welcome maximising their excitement about that activity they're doing? Or is it basically a receipt and a bit meh and a bit boring and a bit, and then you're having to work twice, 3 times as hard to get that excitement back? So that's, I guess, in its simplest terms. Then I also have a term that I call transitionary journeys, which is about welcoming supporters from one area of the charity when they move into another, which should ultimately be the game. But it's the same basic principle. It's just, how are we communicating with our supporters to continue inspiring and exciting them about the actions they can take to see some change in the world, really?
It's like that bridge between acquisition and retention, isn't it? It's like that, like you said, that point where they first come in, they're wanting something, they've moved, they've taken action, which we're always so desperate to, we spend so much money trying to acquire these people, but then we have often this disjoint in the middle where it's like they come in for one reason under some sort of circumstances, and we're driving them away before we can really, like, what is it? Are we rushing to get them where we want them? We're trying to turn them into something they're not, and we're not holding their hands through the experience. Is that where the problem is coming from?
I actually think it might be the opposite. I think it's often in charity sector, we're too slow to try and get that second action. And we're really scared. We're like I often talk about it as being the little pangolin creatures. We're like, oh, please, could you possibly maybe do something next? Maybe, but it takes us months and months and months to ask them that. Events is my key example here. Is, someone would have spent 6 months training and fundraising and doing amazing things for, say, London Marathon, and then they've had all this great engagement, all of this great stewardship, and then the communication drops off a cliff until 5 months later they're sent a Christmas appeal, and they're like, well, I've not heard from you in between time. What's going on? Because we were too shy, too nervous, too worried about offending to give them any other action in between time. But the Christmas appeal, that's the banker appeal. We need to send that to everyone that we've got on the database. We'll send it to all of those community events people, but they've had nothing in between. And it's the same with individual giving. It's not actually the first gift that's the hardest, it's the second. And I think I remember when I was in, I'd love to hear from other IGers what you're seeing data-wise, but actually prime time to make that second ask was within sort of 6 to 8 weeks, which you say that to many fundraisers, and particularly fundraisers at smaller charities, and they go, what, that's so soon? But it might not be a second gift. Maybe it's just another action. Maybe it's a micro action. Maybe it's a share this post. It's give your supporters the opportunity to still keep being involved and doing something, and just vary and test what that second action is.
We make assumptions sometimes about our people, that like our when they join our list, we almost assume that they're going to do the work. They're going to go explore our website, and they're going to know what the next logical step is, and if they wanted to help more, they would. But I mean, that's really a false assumption, isn't it? Like, we have to kind of put ourselves in front of them, like all forms of fundraising, surely.
Yeah, definitely. I think we forget that when we're in the detail of something, we are seeing all of these different things. We're in the trees. We think that everyone else knows what's in our brains. And actually, no one else knows what's in our brains at all, but especially not our supporters. They're not thinking like fundraisers or thinking like charity staff. They don't know what the other options are. And I've got, there's some data a while back now. It'd be great to see this research redone, but about asking supporters, why did they give? And it was something like 30% of them said, because I was asked. And I actually think it's actually a higher number than that. And also, people just don't know what the next step is. I was talking to a community fundraiser the other day on my training course, who shared a beautiful story that I think sums it up, where there was a minister of a church who said, could you come along and represent the charity by reading this hymn? We're going to read a hymn for everyone that your charity supports. And this fundraiser said, okay, that's very nice, thank you. Is there an opportunity to do something else? Could we hold a collection? Could I ask you to sign up to the email list, et cetera, et cetera? And this minister was like, oh, hadn't even thought of that. All I thought about was the hymn and in praying for the people your charity works for. But yes, you're right, that probably would be quite helpful. And this lovely community fundraiser, I'm sure, kept a beautifully professional face and going, that's wonderful, thank you so much.
Yeah.
But actually, if she turned up to spend an hour at this church service to read a hymn, actually the thing that's going to make a very tangible difference, as well as that beautiful engagement with the community, is that collection and is the money that they're going to raise. So our supporters just aren't in our heads and in knowing what the next step is. They're just in their world. So for example, this minister, he's in his world of it's a church and they're going to read a hymn and say a prayer. Makes perfect sense to him.
Yeah.
Us as fundraisers, we're like, could we pass the collection plate around? That'd be fab, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose we're guilty of doing it ourselves sometimes as fundraisers or as marketing people. We like forget where we're trying to bring people. And then it's like, you're sending them these emails, you're sending them these blogs or whatever. And it's like, well, what is our actual goal with this? Are we just like keeping in touch for the sake of keeping in touch? Or is the goal to move them to monthly? Is the goal to get their company involved? Like, and so I guess that brings me on to really like, how do you approach this? And I would love anyone who's watching this live, please do comment. And anyone who's listening back, please do reach out to us. But I had a really interesting conversation last year with, I think it was Claire Donner from More Onion. And she was talking about welcome journeys a little bit, about how, really that first, I think she said almost 6 to 12 months, you might not be putting people into the general pot of communications, but having like its own dedicated welcome journey for that full 12 months. Like that is the welcome journey. It's very special. So I'm just curious in terms of your thoughts on a practical level, how do you start mapping out this welcome journey in an organization when you work with one of your clients? Like, what does that map look like? Is it a big drawing? Is it like a step-by-step in Excel? Just maybe you could talk us through the process a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really interesting from More On, it being 6 to 12 months. And I think I'd love to see how different charities have tested that and looked at that, because that to me sounds really, really exciting and something I'd love to see charities doing. The flip side, though, I think, is I work a lot with smaller and medium-sized charities, and the resource that a small charity has looks very, very different to even a medium charity, let alone the larger charities. And what I always say with my clients is we're going to start with where you're at and start with your resource. And I always, always, always advocate, whether you're big, small, medium, in between, if you're just getting started, done is better than perfect. Start simple and build onto it. It is much, much easier to start with a simple and effective journey and series of communications and do it beautifully and do it well and track some results than try and have a wall of post-it notes with if this, then that. And if they do that, then they go that way. But if they go there, they go that way. If I had £1 for every time I was sat in a conference room with a wall full of post-it notes and all of these complicated journeys and if statements and this, that, and the other, and it never gets implemented. Or if it does, it gets implemented really, really poorly and it breaks and it falls down. And the bottom line is supporters don't get communicated with, they don't get stewarded, they don't get welcomed, and it all falls apart. So I'm a massive, massive, massive advocate for can't talk, advocate to start simple. And the process I normally recommend to charities as a starter for 10, just rather than that blank sheet of paper, is your yearly communications journey. At least one email a month, which is a stewardship piece. It's a story, it's impact of your work, it's beautiful saying, this is the point of what we do, right? This is why we're here. And you can tie that into national days, into things happening at your charity, into, whatever it might be. But at least one a month that is just pure stewardship, a beautiful news piece and story of your work. Then in between that, you've got space for every 2 weeks to have what could be a call to action. That doesn't mean you're going to have something every month that's a call to action, but that's when you start to slot in your Christmas appeal, your wear a funny hat day, your sign this petition for our local MP, whatever it might be. So again, that call to action can be one clear call to action. It's not trying to ask your supporters to do 1,000,001 things. And then within that as well, it's thinking about, well, what else do you do offline? Because most charities are going to be looking at email. But again, do you have supporters' addresses? Do you have the opportunity to send that petition or that Christmas appeal or whatever in the post? Do you have the opportunity in there to send a stewardship piece in the post? And I would recommend, if resource allows, about 4 times a year. So once a quarter, give or take, and alternate, ask stewardship, ask stewardship. Stewardship could be a newsletter. It could just be a little thank you postcard. But again, it's those different ways and opportunities to engage your supporters. And then layered over that is the all-important welcome journey. Now, I generally recommend to charities an email welcome journey with maybe one offline communication if you've got their details, so like maybe a postcard or a phone call or whatever your resource allows for. And I generally sort of say a welcome journey of sort of 4 to 6 emails, give or take, over maybe sort of 6 to 8 weeks to 12 weeks. Again, depends on resource, depends on what stories you have to tell, depends on what you're trying to engage supporters with. Now, that is based very much on resource of small charities. Is this feasible? Can you do this? Because then you can start to build on that. Actually, if you've got the capacity to build out that welcome journey to be a separate journey to your main comms over a year, beautiful, do it and test that. But get the basics done brilliantly first, and then bolt on, and then add on, and then look at your data and tweak and amend, rather than trying to do it all straight out the gate, because it won't work. Quite simply, it's better to do something and do it well.
Yeah, I think you make some really great points there about priorities and resources, and we might just unpack that a bit, because I think like, yeah, one of the things, like, we do overcomplicate it sometimes, you know, and we try and like, we start with our big list. I was just talking about this on LinkedIn, start with our big list, and then we're trying to carve it up into all these different combinations. But sometimes it's just about focusing on maybe the most, where most of your leads or most of your emails are coming from. So if most people are signing up through your website and they're joining, that might be one segment that you start with, and not like they get bogged down with everything else, but just focus on one thing. So there's that kind of priorities thing there. Where else would you generally see priorities? Like, where are the quick wins when you're working with clients, and where are what do you normally see falling down?
Absolutely. Again, it really depends on where their people are coming from. I think one of the overlooked opportunities, particularly at small charities, is that community fundraising piece. So is your people that are coming to you and going, I'm going to do a bake sale, I'm going to sell my stuff on Vinted, I'm going to volunteer my time, I'm going to run the Leeds Marathon, you know, whatever it might be. And particularly at small charities where there maybe isn't a solid stewardship program, they're probably being stewarded beautifully, one-on-one, by a really passionate relationship community fundraiser. Stunning, gorgeous. We love to see that. Until the charity starts to get so many of those supporters that poor fundraiser starts to get a bit overwhelmed. And that's when you need a bit more of a tailored, planned out stewardship journey for those supporters. But again, it's about when they finish that fundraising, then what? Then what do we do with them? Because again, for a lot of small charities, those engaged supporters who just really care about what you're doing and want to be a part of it, and they'll have done that thing that's initially inspired them. But then how do we take them on that journey to what's next? And I also see this with medium charities where I've got community fundraisers who are like, I really want to do that welcome journey. I want to do that transitionary journey, but I need to get marketing buy-in. I need to work with IG. I need to do this, I need to do that. And that can be a constantly moving puzzle piece to try and understand that. But again, is do what you can. So actually, if part of your community stewardship also includes in that transitionary journey, that is at least in your sphere of control and influence to take them on that transitionary journey into talking about the wider charity before they go into that broader pot. And it's better to do that and do that well for that group of supporters before trying to build it out with others as well. So I think, don't get stuck on, we need to have this done for every group of supporters and it needs to be perfect. Start with one segment and start with the one that, as you say, look at your data. Where are most of your supporters coming from? Is it that you host a conference every year and most people on your email list is because they came along to that conference, meaning maybe they're more academically or service-based inclined, so therefore your supporter comms maybe needs to look a little bit different because you need to talk to them about that before going in on the fundraising stuff. Not every communication is going to be perfect for every single person. With all the segmentation and all the data analysis in the world, you're going to get an email that goes to someone where it doesn't meet their exact values or motivations because you're not a mind reader. Quite simply, you don't know everyone's preferences and insights and interests. So do as much as you can with the data you have and accept that done is better than perfect would be my general.
Yeah, I think that's a really realistic thing to highlight. Once you get into automations and grouping things, there will be stuff that isn't perfectly fit for it. But you've made a great point there. Like when you start with small organizations, they usually have the very best welcome journeys because they're one-to-one. And I think like that's a really interesting way to approach this is you're trying to like still keep that one-to-one feeling, but you're like grouping people so that you can just send them the same thing and kind of save that bulk stuff. You talked about community fundraising. I will say to anyone who's listening or watching this, a reminder that Sarah is curating our the Fundraising Everywhere Community Fundraising Conference, which is happening on the 19th of June. We will be unpacking a lot of the community stuff and Sarah will be hosting that herself. We've got some great speakers for that. But Sarah, you drew like a really clear distinction there with like, say, for example, your donors versus your community fundraisers, the people who are running the marathon for you. I mean, those are what seems like two very clearly different welcome journeys. And when you talk about those transitional journeys, you're trying to move them different places, presumably. So is that the kind of thing that people watching this should be starting with? Or is it those easy distinctions between like event fundraisers and your VIPs and stuff, where do they start when if they're getting their first audiences together?
Sure, I'd say yes and no. That's
the answer to everything in fundraising, isn't it? It's either it depends or yes and no.
So I think the key difference between donors, for example, and your community fundraisers is that because your community fundraisers are doing something that is going to be over a bit more of a prolonged period of time, whether it's a bake sale in 2 weeks or a marathon in 6 months, there's a bit more of a multi-step stewardship journey for the action that they're doing, because you're going to be giving them fundraising ideas and training tips and telling them thank you and maybe going along to their event or whatever it might be. So there's going to be multiple steps in that stewardship for the action that they're taking, and often then a higher return on investment on that, because that person's going to raise £1,000 in a marathon or 500 from their bake sale for multiple steps. Whereas your donor that's given £20 on your website, you should absolutely have a beautiful thank you for them, and it doesn't just have to be digital. You can pick up the phone, send something offline, etc. But there were significantly fewer steps connected to that key action. But actually, the thing that we look, so that's where it's different. However, when we then think about what are the then follow-on communications once that action is completed, so donor gives 20 quid, donor gets beautiful thank you, donor gets a couple of email welcome journey, goes on to an email welcome journey, supporter has signed up to do the marathon, gets all the gorgeous stewardship, knows more about your charity, but maybe in a very specific way, then what does their welcome journey look like? This is where those journeys don't have to look drastically different. In terms of those journeys should share impact, share stories, share different voices within your charity. So don't have it all come from the director of fundraising or the CEO. Have an email come from a nurse in your hospice. Have an email come from someone who's working on the front line. Have it come from a family member if you can get, permissions and all that good jazz. Have different voices, different content, different ways of talking about why your charity is here. Woven into that are the opportunities to be involved in other ways. Micro actions, follow us on social media, forward this email, sign this petition, cheer at the next London Marathon cheer point. Offer the opportunities to be involved and don't pigeonhole and silo your supporters. These are donors, we're only going to ask them for money. These are community fundraisers, we're only going to ask them to do things. Actually, your community fundraisers may really want to give a regular gift. Your donor might be your next amazing marathon runner. And when charities start siloing and pigeonholing and only talking to them in a certain way, it's when you're limiting your fundraising. And this is, again, where I'd say small charities actually have the superpowers, because those silos often don't already exist. They just are our supporters. And that's what we need to get to, is they are our supporters. And it's just about offering different opportunities at different times to inspire them. And we're never going to be an expert at making the exact right ask at the exact right time. We've just got to test things and try it out.
Yeah. I think that's such an important point about silos. And it's funny that like those silos are man-made creations. Like they're not there from the beginning, because people are our donors or our fundraisers. They are just humans who experience different things. And so it always amazes me that we do sometimes really box off. Like we will not ask our fundraisers for donations, and we won't. But I mean, audiences like that are surely going to be higher performing than cold, than trying to like get brand new people in who've never heard of your organization.
Always.
Why do we do it? Is it literally just a departmental thing, or is it the fear of scaring off donors again? Like, where does it come from?
It's a little bit of that fear of like, we can't override. I think I also be very interested to see the global divide in this. If anyone's listening from different countries where they maybe don't have this fear, but I definitely see those little pangolin creatures as being the most British. They're not British. They live in, I want to say, South America, but they just feel like they epitomise sort of British culture of, oh, please, if you wouldn't mind, I'm so sorry to ask. I'm so sorry to take up space. If you wouldn't, this sort of scared approach of not wanting to over ask or overdo things, but actually our supporters want the opportunity to be involved. If we don't get, I think my best example of this is there's a local charity to me who are just beautiful. They do gorgeous, gorgeous work with women who don't have necessarily the right to remain, leave to remain, and under fives. And they basically just give these mums and babies a safe place to play, a vegetarian meal, and access to services from other charities like Shelter or the government or whatever, which they wouldn't have normally had access to. And for that charity, I've done fundraising. I've sat on their fundraising committee. I go and pick up buggies and deliver them. I talk about them on a daily basis, it seems like. I would never consider myself a regular donor or a volunteer. I support that charity because they're gorgeous and I think they do great work. And that's what your supporters are thinking. So we need to take these man-made boxes we've built around our departments and around our groups of donors and around everything else and break them down and say, Our supporters want the opportunity to be involved. Our supporters want to hear about the impact of their gifts, and our supporters want to be thanked. This is a model that I use a lot, that I've talked about, which is the 3 dials of stewardship. Which bits you dial up or dial down: the gratitude, the impact, and the opportunity to be involved in other ways. And that's the bit that we miss off. And we just need to put this British pangolin fear to one side, because as long as we're asking politely and with reason, and actually it's not about asking, it's about giving the opportunity, then our supporters will take up those opportunities when it works for them. When it doesn't work for them, it'll be a no thanks. But very, very rarely will your supporters be offended that you dared ask. And if they did, well, okay, what would you like us to do? Not write to you anymore? Okay, no problem, Mr. Jones. Thank you again for your support in the past.
It's funny, and I mean, don't get me started on the Brits, but like in the example, like the organization that you're passionate about, it's like you sound really passionate about it, but I imagine you're not thinking about it 24/7, you know, and I imagine you don't know every single thing that's going on in there and every single thing they need. So like you said, it's like opportunity. Sometimes it's just like putting the opportunity in front of people, and then it maybe fits or it maybe doesn't, but there's a reason to make these, put time into these journeys and these communications, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And that charity, they're a small charity, a limited resource. I helped them set up their email list many years ago, and I haven't had emails from them in a long time. I don't know if I've been taken off the list, if it's been a spam issue, if they maybe just didn't have the resource to keep sending those emails, whatever it might be. And every now and again I go, I need to drop them an email and ask them about that and see if I can help. And then I forget. And I'm a fundraising consultant. I do that 24/7. I love that charity, and I don't always remember to drop them that email. If they sent an email out to previous volunteers and went, can anyone help us sort out our email list? I'd be like, oh, amazing, brilliant. Yes, of course I can. No worries. Like,
we're coming towards the end, but this concept you have of transitionary journeys, like, it's really interesting. And we actually got an email to Fundraising Everywhere the other day, and it was asking about people's likelihood to move from one audience to the other and things like that. Do you have any? I mean, fundraisersarah.com is the website. Fundraisersarah.com. Do get on Sarah's mailing list, and do follow Sarah on LinkedIn, because Sarah shares some really great tips. But in terms of that transitionary, so I'm trying to catch myself from saying it, transitionary. Any other big highlights from that? Obviously, people are going to come to the community fundraising conference to learn loads about all this stuff. But any other like jump out things in that transitionary in terms of these journeys and how we get people to do more than they originally signed up for? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's, again, just get it in place. I often ask, when I do this session at conferences and things like that, I say, who has beautiful stewardship for your community fundraisers, events fundraisers, etc., and how many of them then fall off a cliff at the end of that journey, only to be sent the Christmas appeal or the newsletter, whatever, 6 months later, and everyone sort of sheepishly puts their hand up. And I'm like, how many of them fall off the cliff and never get anything again until the next year's marathon or whatever? And the rest of the room's hands sheepishly go up. And I'm like, just get something in place. So again, that 3 to 5 email journey that takes your supporters from, you did the marathon, you're epic, you're amazing, you smashed it, you're so awesome. Here are some other areas of our charity we may not have talked about over the last 6 months. Here's someone else's voice. Here's other ways you can be involved. That doesn't mean to send them a list of absolutely everything, but again, give them some micro actions. And in your final communication, it's, we're going to stay in touch. You'll get regular emails from us, monthly emails, whatever it is. And we'll also let you know about other ways you can get involved, because we know you care. Bring it back to them and their motivations. We know you care about reason your charity exists, because you raised £2,500 running the marathon for us, you epic thing, you. So we're going to stay in touch and let you know about other ways you can help make change here. So just bring it back to those motivation support and get something in place so that the communications don't drop off a cliff after 6 months of gorgeous stewardship to only be sent something again a year later, because then they won't respond. But if you keep the communication consistent and keep those little asks or opportunities, more to say, woven in there, people will be more likely to take up those opportunities because they know they exist in the first place.
You make it sound so logical, and I think that there's a truth to that. It's like some of this stuff it is quite not obvious, but when you sit down and think of it as a supporter, like if I was doing the marathon and I raised this, what would I want to hear? What's the logical thing? When we put time aside to think it through, it kind of does all make sense. It's just, what is it? I feel like it's maybe when we're looking at spreadsheets and data, it's like it's hard to forget about the individuals that are going through. But
we like to overcomplicate things. I think we like to think, it's back to that sort of chimp paradox, isn't it? We like to think we're these highly intellectual, academic, data-driven beings that must make all decisions in this very intellectual way. Bah, 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 bah. Oh yes, Paul. Oh yes. We want to overcomplicate things, and actually take it back to basics. take it back to human-centric, people-focused basics of good, clear communication, of storytelling, of honest, authentic gratitude. And you can always build out from there. You can always add in lovely, complicated, whizzy, clever things, but just take it back to basics. Do the basics brilliantly and the rest will follow. That's my general mantra on it.
I think that's great. And I think it's like you said earlier, it's almost emulating those first days of a charity when you're really small and it's your first donor or your first supporter. It's like, naturally the journey is perfect, you know, and it's like, how can we bring that in? So it's been so great chatting to you, and I always love getting your thoughts on this. I will say to everyone, find fundraiser Sarah at fundraisersarah.com. Fundraisersarah.com is the website, and there's some great resources on there. And Sarah, you're great on LinkedIn. I would highly recommend people follow you on LinkedIn, Sarah Goddard. Where are you spending most of your times these days online to get your knowledge and things like that? You're going in a lot on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn and Instagram. I've been having a lot of fun with like reels and trending things and being a bit silly. I'm a performing arts kid at heart. That was where I started in life. Anything that gets to me, having a bit of a laugh, being a bit silly, but balancing that with actually genuine, like helpful tips and things like that as well. So Instagram and LinkedIn, that's where to come find me. Fundraiser Sarah on both. And always feel free to send me messages. Tell me what you want to hear more of as well. So always helpful to know what people actually want to know about. So.
Amazing. Yeah, I'd second that. And Sarah's stuff is great, entertaining and useful, but do reach out to her. And Sarah, reminder for everyone that Sarah is curating our community fundraising conference. So the Fundraising Everywhere Community Fundraising Conference is happening on the 19th of June. How's it looking, Sarah? I haven't looked at the program, I'll be honest, in a few weeks, but it's
so exciting. There are so many brilliant speakers and from such a wide range of charities as well. So there's going to be so many practical tips for big, small, medium charities. There's a couple of fab people, Rez Curtis Moss and Mona Hussain. They're both drawing on marketing expertise. So again, bringing this world of community and marketing together. We've got a fabulous panel of speakers who have built their careers starting out in community fundraising and are now doing epic leadership roles across the sector. They're going to be hugely inspiring to hear from, and way more. Go to the website, go and check out all the speakers and buy your ticket because you're going to want to be there because it is going to be epic. Honestly.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this and people are getting excited about it. So do check it out at fundraisingeverywhere.com. You can find all of our events, but we've also got a link here. Whether you're watching this or listening back to it, we'll find a link in the description. So join us all at the Community Fundraising Conference on 19th of June, and you will have the recordings available to watch back if you can't join us live. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. It's been so lovely chatting to you, but I'm going to say goodbye to you and say to you, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you. It's always fab talking fundraising with you too.
Good. I love it. And thank you all for listening, or thank you for watching live. We will see you. We have our supporter experience conference coming up first, but then next month, the community fundraising conference, you will see both Sarah and I. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of the Fundraising Everywhere community, and we will see you again soon. Take care, all.
Hey.